It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and Other Books, written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world. Receiving our signals through the magic of El Internet, formerly known as the ARPANET, created by we the people, but now mostly controlled by the plutocracy, the oligarchy. But you know what, folks? In the long run, we are working to take it back. Anyway, without further ado, let's go to the geniuses in the studio, the ones who really make things happen. El Señor Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Bibba.
Well, Jack, did you feed the squirrels in the cage this morning?
Actually, I did.
Good.
I did.
They were.
I bought me some pecans, and I've been feeding the squirrels.
Well, they were all happy. They were running on there, generating electricity, and that's how we. Good morning, Egberto. It is Wednesday, the 21st of May, 2025, at the radio, and I thought we might start out this morning with a rant.
Rant, brother. Rant, brother.
Rant on. All
Rant
right.
on.
Well, my rant involves what Arnie Arneson was talking about this morning and with her guest, and the thinly disguised birthright citizenship, because they've issued so many decisions on that, 2 Supreme Court decisions, but here it is again before them. But that's not what's really there. What's really there is insidious. It's the rights for courts to block illegal orders. Can a district judge block a nationwide order? Yes, he can. And if you take that away from him, then only the Supreme Court will be able to do it. And then you've got a real problem, because the lawless president we have now is not following any Supreme Court orders. He is in contempt of the Supreme Court and is still loose, still not in jail, where he should be, for doing this. There is my rant this morning. So beware, people, the thinly veiled, insidious decision which would render the Supreme Court itself irrelevant. Be careful. Be aware. Let them know how you think. Contact your representative and say, this is wrong. Jack, you got some wisdom over there.
But before, Jack, I just want to give you a big hand clap, because that is something that a lot of people don't see the real danger of that. Howard, bringing that up, I think is so damn important, because the conclusion that you talk about is just it. Once you do that, there is then complete laissez-faire, and the president can really become the monarch. You're so right, brother. Thank you.
Yep. Jack has a quarter page of wisdom here, most likely more wise than me.
Well, I don't know about that. Dovetailing into that is the 1,700 judicial appointments he made in his first term. So he's got judges all over the place, in place.
But they are also disagreeing with him too. They should. They have the wherewithal to go, hey, wait a minute. What do we do with this? All right, what you got, man?
All right. Morning, Egberto.
Good morning, Jack.
This is some dirty politics here. GOP sets 1 a.m. hearing to advance Medicaid cuts. Democrat Representative Jim McGovern says the GOP, has such contempt for the American people. And I say, yeah, it shows. A 1 a.m. meeting means the fatigue the politicians will be under will lead to a quick decision that favors the GOP.
Mm-hmm. Another sleazy trick.
Yeah.
Another sleazy trick.
That was the same way. I think it was Phil Gramm that came in during Clinton's at December the 18th to tear down Glass-Steagall.
Yeah. Good old Glass-Steagall that ultimately caused the 2008 crash. They didn't separate the two. investment banking from traditional banking, and these guys created instruments up the gazoo to do all kinds of shenanigans. Thank you for that, sir. All right, let's go ahead and get busy. It turns out that I wrote the program last night, and there's some stuff that I want to talk about before the program, before I go into that, because again, you know how it goes. Anyway, welcome aboard to Joe from Los Angeles, California, Joanne from Los Angeles, California, Linda, Lisa Blair from I think it's Georgia, I think it's Atlanta, and we have, oh my God, the Substack is filled up. We got Michelle, Sabrina, Joe, Judith, Adams. Still I rise, says Cruelty. Laura Harper, Lady McDougal, Randy, Linda Batter, Denise Nice, Deborah J, Shelley Barber, Nicholas, and much, much more in there. Deborah says, Deborah J says, what? Is that a J? Yeah, I think it's a J. What would the imperfect forefathers do to the Trump's regime? Well, unfortunately, a lot of what Trump is doing, we kind of, the Constitution in a lot of ways was imperfect enough to get him to at least do some of the things that he's doing, which is sort of a scary for a physician. Here's the scariest one. What happens when he decides to say, as Andrew Jackson did back in the Trail of Tears days, I just not okay, you ruled, now try to enforce it. I think I said this before. The Constitution worked over the years because no matter how corrupt we thought of any president that has served thus far, ultimately they were true Americans, and they believed in the structure of, or the intent of, what the Constitution was purported to do, and they, for all practical purposes, followed it. As bad as we think Nixon was, when Nixon realized that, well, he doesn't have the people anymore, he didn't try to become an autocrat. He simply resigned and jumped on that plane and left. And we thought that was the end of the world. We thought that was like, oh my God. It almost seemed like everything continued to function as bad as it was. Now with Donald Trump, he's still in office. He's a felon. He's purported, as from what a judge said, a rapist. All these things are true. He's still in power. Wow. Think about that. But, before I get started with what I want to talk about, I see John is on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Johnny in. And folks, I want to do a little bit of talking before the calls, but Johnny jumped the gun, so let's go ahead and hear from Johnny. Come on in, brother Johnny.
I apologize in advance. A theoretical good morning, because we are.
Wait, Johnny. No caller of Politics Done Right ever got to apologize. This is y'all's show. Continue, brother.
Oh no, I feel the need to apologize. That's the mood I'm in right now, and I take no pleasure at all in what I'm about to say. We are as close as we've come to coming to the point in this country now, short of enough people taking to the streets and the suites, literally, as you and I have discussed many times in recent months. We are as close as we've come to, in addition to that, having friendly people in law enforcement and the military who understand the Constitution, they understand the value of good governance, rule of law, and all that, who intend to stick by their oath of office, unlike Donald Trump and his criminal associates in his so-called administration. And what I'm talking about is, I think you know where I'm leading this to. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep, go ahead.
Wait, it's coming very soon now. I can see it, and I hope I'm wrong, where you're going to have some generals saying to Donald Trump, no, this cannot stand. We are ignoring your orders, and we are placing you under arrest, and we are advising the Senate and the House of what we're doing, and to take our orders from them so that they can declare an emergency and start a new election, a special presidential election. Something to that effect. They kind of a military coup along with the people who are out on the streets demanding such, basically.
You know, I am glad. I'm glad you expressed it that way, Johnny. People may think, you're out on a limb, but let me tell you something. I have so much faith, more so in, and even in some of the folks who gullibly voted for Donald Trump. I don't think it's in our nature as Americans to accept a Putin, to accept Duterte, or to accept anybody that ultimately behaves that way. And I am with you that thinking that the interesting thing is putting a lightweight like Hegseth as defense secretary uh, actually tells me or gives me or makes me believe that what you're saying is more possible, meaning that the generals refuse to take these kinds of orders from Donald Trump than not. So I think I'm closer to where you were at than somehow Donald Trump has an edict, declare martial law, and these guys come out and hurt the population. I honestly do not think that is in our nature for that. And let me tell you one of the reasons I think that. Do you remember during the days of and I mean I wasn't born yet when the civil rights movement started. I lived through it, but not when it all started. But do you notice that no matter the character of the military going into the South to protect the people going, whether it's the National Guard or whatever, they followed the law. A lot of these people didn't care about civil rights, didn't want civil rights or whatever. But when Kennedy dispatched these folks, when Johnson did his thing, they didn't say, no, I am not going to follow that order or I'm not going to do that. They followed the law. So I think I read it. Anything else, brother?
Yeah, I hope you're right in what you said about your faith in the American people on both sides of the aisle. I hope you're right. But
I, I really do. I really do. I think if you listen to even those who voted for Donald Trump, they convinced themselves that he would maintain the American what we consider the American fabric. Speak to anybody. Speak to a MAGA person. They actually think they're not wanting to dismantle the fabric. Uh, Most of them won't support an authoritarian if they see that person as an authoritarian. You know.
Before I hang up, one quick related item. I hope you're right, but you know what haunts me?
Yes.
I keep thinking of people who call to this radio station like Breitbart and
Hmm.
Brian
Hmm.
or Brain. I did give Brian a new name. He asked for it, and I gave him a new name the very next day. I just switched around the vowels in his name, Brian to Brain. That's assuming he doesn't spell his name Bryan. So remember what George Carlin said. Remember what George Carlin said. You can spell your last name Smith and pronounce it Janowski. There's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. Have a good day.
Have a good day, Janet. Look, I do think that Brian and Brad likes to pull our legs. I think believe it or not, even what's his name? I think I listen to how people deal with their daughters, their kids, and all that kind of stuff, and that says a lot. That says a lot. Anyway, thank you, Johnny. Um, Look, Donald Trump and all his minions have been really up on this DEI stuff. Today's program isn't supposed to be about DEI, but there are certain things that I think it's important for us to look at. And there is an interesting thing, and I want all of you to think about this, right? Um, y- Yesterday, the Health and Human Services Secretary is Kennedy. This guy. couldn't tell the difference between uh, Medicaid or Medicare. Also, he couldn't tell which of his agencies were cut or how the system actually works. All right. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, we know his history, female abusing, drunk, unqualified for the job based on what he knows. He steps in to replace a guy of stature, Austin, who was a general, who commanded forces, who went through the ringer. Uh, but then we got Defense Secretary Hegseth, a very, very unqualified lightweight with a lot of personal problems. Then we get Secretary Christy Nome, who know little about the Constitution, who said that habeas corpus gives the president rights he doesn't have at all. Amazing. Uh, and so we have those three secretaries, right? I think he should have used DEI when he was hiring, because DEI ensures what again? And this came directly from one of our MAGA folks, MEI, which is meritorious excellence and intelligence. Now, what is interesting is he has three, let's call them, for lack of a better word, minorities on his staff, as secretaries. He has Secretary Scott Turner, HUD Secretary, who is a black dude. He has Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is a Latino. And he has Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is gay. Okay? It turns out that the people that are qualified for the jobs in his cabinet, he actually used DEI to attain MEI. He actually used diversity, equity, and inclusion to attain meritoriously excellent, intelligent folk. So I think the fact that the folks that are actually competent in his cabinet, many of them had to go through the ringer in life to then have access to be secretary in the White House. And go down the list of people that's in the White House and understand what I'm saying there. To be, it points to what, when I grew up at home, my folks never encouraged me to be a victim. My folks never encouraged me to just go ahead and blame or whatever. They just sat me down and said, in life, you do what you have to do to move forward. If you have to work twice as hard for half less, work 4 times as hard to get the full Monty, to get the full shebang. It wasn't work twice as hard to get half as much. It's work 4 times as hard to get it all. And if all of us have that sort of mentality, in the long run, we will not have the equity, diversity, and inclusion having to be written, but it would be executed because that's all people are able to see. I just thought about that this morning. After I saw Kristi Noem made a fool of herself in front of Congress, after I saw Kennedy make a fool of himself in Congress, after I saw Pete Hegseth continue to do that, that just clicked on me. It's like, my God. And look at Marco Rubio, in as much as I don't like Marco Rubio. Look at Scott Bessent, in as much as I don't like Scott Bessent. And look at Scott Turner. I don't give a darn about Scott Turner, who's out right here at Texas. You remember, he served one of those conservative, real bad conservative Congress people before, but he was a good businessman. Uh, look at these guys. They had to go through the ringer to be, in fact, qualified. Welcome aboard as well, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Glenn Ryan from Katy. How you doing, Glenn? Glenn, we need to get you to call in sometime. I know you're kind of on your way, but you put so much in there that I want you to scold me on. Okay? All right. And in our chat we continue. Adam says, I don't want to break up this moment of hope and prayer, but this heathen was elected twice. Haven't we already crossed the Rubicon? Yeah, but like I said, Adam, and this is why I do what we do, and that is, um, I don't want to just go ahead and throw the bathwater out, because I understand what uh, bad information can do to you. I understand what bad framing can do for you. I can understand what having a Fox News, a OAN, and Newsmax can do. I can understand when a complete infrastructure is built on the dissemination of lies and propaganda, how that affects people's mind. And if I go ahead and just hate on and blame the folks who reelected the worst president that we ever had, it would be against what I actually know, and that is how impressive the right wing is in creating a false sense of reality and an alternate reality. They're good at it. It works. We do it overseas. We convince our CIA goes into other countries and create false narratives that actually work. So why wouldn't I think it works here as well, when we have a party that knows how that doesn't mind doing that? Do you think the foreign countries that keep crazy folks in power do it on their own? No. They have a lot of support from our CIA to mold these countries the way we want them, so that we can extract from them. I mean, it is standard modus operandi that we should be aware of. Anyway, the GOP. So I am done with the portion on DEI for MEI. But anybody wants to comment on that, throw it in the chat or elsewhere. And actually, I'll take a call or two on that if you want to check that out. Now, last night was supposed to be the night that your Congress, our Congress, go into session at 1 a.m. to pass a bill, that big, beautiful bill that was supposed to harm you. They were doing it at 1 in the mornings because they didn't want you to realize you were being screwed. You know what? They simply couldn't get the bill passed. So God knows what they're going to do today to try to fool many of you. But they tried like hell. But I mean, the president gave them an impossible task. When he went to Congress yesterday, he said, uh, don't F around with Medicaid benefits. That's what he said, right? And the idea behind saying that was he wanted the media to carry that headline, because the only way that Congress was able to pass, or rather to make the bill work, was in effect to cut Medicaid. And guess what happened when they cut Medicaid? The budget office, CBC, the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan office, actually found out that in the process of cutting over $800 billion from Medicaid, guess what happened? Guess what happened, people? $500 billion got cut from, guess what? Medicare. I was wrong. I told all of you a few days ago or a few weeks ago that while we have to fight for Medicaid, because we need what's called regular order. In other words, the 60 votes to pass to pass any changes to Medicare. That Medicare for now was safe until we got some sort of a cave in from Democrats, etc. I was wrong. I didn't know a particular part of the law. There are certain parts of Medicaid that is so intertwined with Medicare that these cuts to Medicaid actually affect certain portions of Medicare, and because it's done in an ancillary manner, doesn't have to go through the 60 vote majority, because it's just automatic that if you cut this part of Medicaid, automatically Medicare doesn't have those particular funds to work with. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you have to be a magician within reading the code to actually understand how it was intertwined. So people on Medicare, while you may think that, well, I'm not on Medicaid, I don't have anything to worry about. Look, I care about everything. I care about everybody. So if they cut Medicaid, even though I'm not on Medicaid, I do feel for my brothers and sisters on Medicaid. If they cut SNAP, food stamps, I'm not on food stamps, but I care about folks who have the need for that. If they cut what is it, the program for kids, I don't have any minor kids anymore, but I do care about everybody's kids. So what's done to my brother and sister, the way I grew up, is also done to me. All right? So I want you all to know that the reason the bill couldn't pass is even the staunchest Republican in Congress couldn't stomach what was ultimately going to happen. Now, the bill is still likely to pass. I'm talking about the committee right now, because they're going to pull some strings. Donald Trump is going to use his mob style behavior to convince them to pass this bill that's going to harm a lot of you out there, and more than I thought. I thought that Medicare folks were safe. They're not. They're absolutely not safe. I thought so. So, folks, all of you need school lunch program. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that. You see, Jack Van Vever reminded me the school lunch program. Thank you, sir. So, I mean, it is so important for us to see this. But I'm going to pause here because I have Mr. MEI on the line. Bard, come on in.
Yes, sir. You're talking about one of my favorite subjects.
I know.
DEI. And we'll go back to Sleepy Joe's cabinet. He had a Health and Human Services director, was an admiral from the Navy, and his name was Richard Levine. He wore a dress. He decided he was Rachel, put on a dress, looked like Miss Piggy.
Okay, stop right there. Why is that bad? Hold on. When I ask you to stop, Bard, if you're going to continue calling into this show, when I ask you to stop, stop. Now, question, why is that a bad thing?
Huh?
Why is that a bad thing? If he decided to put a dress on, is that a bad thing?
Yes, it is.
Why?
It's showing that he has no judgment. He has no character or integrity.
How does wearing a dress, sir? Bard, question. Why does a man putting a dress on mean he has no character? Didn't the Romans wear dresses as their attire? Didn't they?
If you talk about Boeing, they had the same thing. That's why they can't build a airplane for the president. It's been on order for 8 years. The Air Force One.
And why can't they build it? Why is it?
A bunch of DEI hires.
No.
A bunch of women in there, a screwdriver. They don't even know what it is.
Oh wow. Okay, Bard, I'm not going to allow you to just talk crap.
They don't even know what it is.
Okay, cut, Bard. That's completely crap. That's not even worth discussing. All right. Come on in, Harry. How you doing, Harry?
Oh, good morning, Howard. Good morning,
Harry,
Matt.
before you say this, look, folks, I really don't cut people off to cut their line or anything like that. But in my opinion, what Bard was doing was obscene. Okay, first of all, disparaging women, completely nonsensical stuff. Boeing can't build planes, build planes fast enough because they're the capitalist portion of the business. They're thieves, and when I say they're thieves, I mean it. I'll explain those overruns, etc., at some other time. Continue, Harry.
Well, I'm looking forward to you explaining that about Boeing. Yeah, I have another acronym for this White House administration, and it is more stupid imbeciles. I know you listen to NPR from time to time. There's a show that comes on. I listen to it pretty much daily. It's at 6:30. It's called Market Week. It talks about Marketplace. Talks about the economy every day.
Yeah, I used to listen to it every day. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy named Kai Wisdall.
Oh yeah.
Now he was talking about toward the end of his show. This is a couple of days ago when I was listening to it. He was talking about why he said the White House press secretary was lying about the debt. She was talking about, she threw some numbers out there about 1.6 trillion it will save, and then Kai Wisdom just came on with it and said, "Folks, this is why facts matter." And he just said, "What that 1.6 trillion will do? It will not save 1.6 trillion. It will run up 3.3 trillion over the next 10 years." And I like Kai Wisdom because he's honest and he always points out when this White House administration is lying. I love him because he tries to educate people all the time about the economy. I mean, he'll educate you. He always talks like you, brother. He talks about tariffs. He's always talking about that's a sales tax. This president is misleading you when he says that the foreign countries are going to pay more, and that's not true. It's going to be passed on to the consumers of this country.
Harry, exactly. Harry, I gotta go. Harry, I gotta go. But here, let me just say this to you, my brother, because you brought up an important thing. You see how you talk about the secretary, or rather the woman who's the press secretary, right? The press secretary just came out and lied immediately to the American people. Now, if you watch that on Fox News, right? That becomes your talking point. We're saving money. A lot of folks aren't going to listen to her and then go listen to Rizdal, who goes ahead and tell the truth. So you understand why I talk about having to have some sort of compassion to those people who are just misled, because it's not that they are just dumb. That's not the case at all. It is that they still have faith in those streams of information. And what I say a lot of times is we have to earn the faith of the other folks as well. And a lot of times I blame a lot of, and I want to say this the right way. A lot of times I blame the left for, we know what's right, and we figure I just have to say something one time and they get it, and it's okay. And that's not the case. You have to keep repeating stuff. You have to overcome you have to put the work in to talk to people, I guess is what I'm saying. And that is, I think, where we have failed. But thank you, my brother. I talk to you later, Harry.
Can I tell you one more thing?
Only if you take 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be real quick. I was listening to Think last night. I'm going to send you an email. This guy says a lot of the things you're saying. He's got a PhD. He's a science journalist. His name is Adam Becker, and he's always talking about these tech billionaires and something you talked about, how they don't write code. They think they're so smart because they have more money than anybody else. His name is Adam. I'm going to send you an email.
Send me an email. Thank you, brother. Yeah, you guys can suggest anybody you want me to interview. Just suggest it. Send me an email. Thank you, brother. Let's go to brother Jeff. Let's go to Jeff. Come on in, Jeff.
Good morning, Alberto. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
Well, I'm going to go on the DEI about the dress that person was wearing to the office.
Hmm.
You know, that position probably holds a lot of influence on young kids and everything. And what he does at home, I could care less. If he wants to run around in a dress all day, but if you're going to go into the office, you know, a government office, you should wear the proper attire. And that's he's a man. Well, I say he's a man, but he should wear what men wear. You know, he's
Let me tell you, I get your point. I get your point, Jeff. And let me tell you, when I came from Panama, that's how I felt too, right? I felt that everything should follow a particular pattern, etc. Now, if we have a particular dress code that we are going to define, that was come up with democratically, I don't have a problem with what you're saying. Okay, but just something that is actually imposed, I do have a problem with. Let me go for a racial example here. For a very long time, black women who had afros were forced to put chemicals in their hair to abide. Why? Because the corporate look was supposed to be a certain way. I can go on with other cultures and how they are forced to adapt. Okay. Now you feel, and respectfully, you feel a lot of the ways that you feel because of how you were indoctrinated in society. A man is supposed to look this way, dress this way, and act this way. There is this movement right now going about a masculinity movement. One of the problems is we've taken away masculinity from men, or I mean, when you finally open yourself into a domain that realizes that all of us, we have different strengths. There are testosterone makes men in the aggregate stronger than women, but there are stronger women than men. When it comes to knowledge, women's brains, and these are all scientific statements I'm making, work much more efficiently than men. Men have bigger brains, women have smaller brains, but their smaller brains, in the aggregate, I'm speaking now, work a lot more efficiently, which makes them do quite a few things faster and have the ability to multitask. That's a biological thing. So, I mean, there are so many things that we do that have been wrong based on science, and it has percolated through society. So a guy wearing a dress because we decide apparently that isn't supposed to be. So even though in the Romans days an attire was a skirt, you know, I am not going to fall for that, my dear brother. Continue, Jeff.
well, you know, you're bringing back past history like the Romans. Jesus, that's ancient.
It does.
And you
So
know,
what?
women.
But you're bringing in clothes. You're bringing in new history. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead.
You know, you bring in all that old history, and then you know, the women thing. I think women are, you know, the women have come a long way. My sisters are all not powerful people, but they have hold positions that are, you know, money making jobs, and I think that is changing
Mm.
drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the guy wearing the shirt, the dress, you know, I think about, you know, kids nowadays have a hard enough time. And, you know, they see, you know, all this nonsense going on with guys being able to wear dresses, and it just fills their heads up. I mean, they should be able to live their life until they turn 18. At 18, they can wear dresses all they want inside.
Have you seen a kid? Let me ask you this. Had I you know I used to go to schools to give talks. I don't do it much anymore. I don't do it anymore. But my wife lived at the Kingwood High School when my daughter was going there for very specific reasons. She made sure to be present. Now, I don't. I had never seen a trans kid. I'd never seen a kid with a skirt on. I mean, all these things are generally the very big exception that Republicans blow up whenever they can find one example. It's not worth the effort in talking about it. But the one thing I want to say is I want to show you how, and again, this respectfully, I want to show you what you said. Women have come a long way. Do you understand how that actually sounds to a woman?
Well, it sounds kind of bigamous, you know, not bigamous, but condescending.
actually ignorant and condescending. Yes, and that's the same way it feels
And I
when.
agree. I agree with
Wait,
that. But
yeah, hold on,
they,
Jeff. Hold on. That's the same way it sounds when somebody talk about a Latino that way to me, or a black person that way to me, or a Caribbean person to me that way. We have to learn that not because we were reared a certain way, because I was reared as a sexist and a homophobe. I expanded my horizon to open my viewpoint. All I'm going to tell you is, in what I'm talking to you right now, try doing that. I understand where you're coming from. I really do. And where you're coming from is from our level of indoctrination here. Think about that and talk to me about it tomorrow because my lines are full, Jeff.
I think
so,
two
so
things
we talk.
real quick.
Let's
Real
talk.
quick.
Okay, real quick. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
You know, that part of it, I think it's the 1% that's, the transgender that are pushing it down your throat, and I'll leave it at that. And Johnny and Harry, they need to figure out what's going on. I mean, they're on that left rant, and it's just
Okay, now
dangerous.
you're going to let me want to stay with you a bit longer because wait. I want to gosh, I'm sorry that we cut you, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's go ahead and go to Jimmy. Come on in, Jimmy.
I want to talk about the Eternal Gandhi Museum, Houston. We went to see it Sunday. I've been there a couple of times before. It is a wonderful museum here honoring Mahatma Gandhi and other nonviolent activists like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela. It really is a superb museum, and I really advocate that people in Houston go see it.
What is the name of it, Jimmy?
Yeah.
What's the name?
The name of the museum is Eternal Gandhi Museum, Houston. It's all about Mahatma Gandhi and the other nonviolent activists here in the country, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela. And I really highly recommend that people go see this museum and learn about how effective nonviolence can be in our world.
I appreciate you.
Also, we saw this movie the other day. It was a 1982 movie titled Gandhi. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. It's a 3-hour-long movie, and it is really awesome. We rented it for just $3.99 and saw it on our own TV sets. But it really is a wonderful movie that advocates nonviolence and shows that Gandhi was a real hero. He was the one that effectively got England to let India go from under its power. And I highly recommend people see that movie also.
Thank you very much for that, Jimmy. You always have some good info for us. I wonder if I thought I saw that movie, but thank you so kindly, Jimmy. We'll talk later, okay?
Good deal. Have a good day. Thank you, Egberto. Bye-bye.
You too, brother. All right, let's go to Brother Patrick. Patrick, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hold on a second, Patrick. I know women, you're very busy, but I so want to hear the point of view of women. Every caller thus far has been a man. And, and this is not a scolding or anything like this. I don't have the authority or power to do that. But a lot of times, like folks, seed the platform. I ask all of you kindly, don't cede this platform to just men. Women have to put us in our place so many times. Please do it. All right, Patrick, sorry about that.
Oh, no. I appreciate the rant. Shout out to Harry. You had a good question. If you look at Boeing and you look at any other defense contractors, people that are paid out of our military budget, they outpace on the S&P 500 all the other corporations by 2 to 4 times, not percent, but times. That's a sheer indication that we're overpaying them and that they're ripping us off. Now to Bart. Bart, I already pointed out that you can go onto YouTube and Reagan is dancing around in a dress. So I guess we know what you think about Reagan now. And if you think that they don't know their way around a screwdriver, some of the most impressive discoveries in physics have been with women. I'm pretty sure that the woman that discovered and proved dark matter knows her way around a screwdriver and could probably improve on it. The idea that you think that gender holds back somebody or makes them successful is just incredible to me. There's no evidence for it, and I believe the definition of somebody or of somebody that believes something that isn't true despite evidence is psychosis. So you're involved with.
Oh, that the way you came into that, it kind of gave me a chuckle. Anything else, Patrick, before we go on to Bruce?
No, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you so kindly, Patrick. All right, Bruce, come on in.
Good morning, Alberto.
Good morning, my brother.
I just got two things. First, when I moved to California in '87, I drove by myself in a station wagon. The last leg of my trip, I was dead dog tired, and I pulled into Pleasanton, California, trying to get a cup of coffee at a convenience store, and the door was locked. And as I'm walking to my car, the door opens, and a lady says, "Come on in, come on in. I saw your Texas plates." She goes, "My girlfriend and I are from Kingwood. We moved out here because we're better accepted out here." So she made a pot of coffee for me. But anyway, they have smog rules there, so I had to have changes done to my car. Congress is about to make it where California can't set their own rules. But anyway, I mentioned to the mechanic, I said, "I bet this is a pain, all these tight rules." He goes, "No, we love it. We can breathe again." But anyhow, the other point I'm making is DEI. Trump is practicing DEI. He's favoring a minority. It's a minority of people that have the Fox News look. All right. He's favoring people that have a TV look over people that are qualified. That's DEI. I'm done. Bye.
Thank you so kindly for that, Bruce. Yeah, look, the DEI trunket is just that. It is silly, and the folks that you see, and I say this, and these people really should change. But if you after being informed what DEI really is, if you continue to use that as a moniker, then you really have to define yourself as a true racist. And I don't say that sparingly. I mean that because, anybody who thinks people of color, black, Latino, whatever, women who hold these jobs or holding them because they don't deserve to be there. There are a few of them that don't deserve to be there, but there are a hell of a lot of others that don't deserve to be there that are there. But let me tell you how much harder it is. And, whether you want to accept it or not, Mr. Bart, for FCC reasons and 501c3 reasons, I won't say the name of the book. But one of the reasons I wrote a particular book about being in my skin and in the culture I came from and what it meant for employment in America, and I did it I did it to write to people like you who are who have been fooled into believing that when you see somebody of color or woman in a position that somehow they are there because of they were given a benefit to be there. Let me tell you something, brother. There are two things you should know. One is that that's not the case in the aggregate, and two, the burden that woman, that person of color have because they know they are troglodytes out there like you who believe their sole purpose of their being there is because they were given a break because of their gender or their cultural being. That is another burden. So they have to work the burden of getting the job done better in the aggregate, not to be judged, not making mistakes, and knowing how people are looking at them for that job because of troglodytes who push that false message. Dawn, come on in. Sister Dawn, come on in.
Yes, how are you doing? Good day. Can you hear me?
I'm doing fine. Yes, I can hear you, my friend. Talk to me.
Just two things. Number one, maybe the caller didn't mean, his comment the way he said it, but, women have come a long way. I just want to say, as a woman, I hold a job that I do from 8 to 5 every day. And then when I get home, I have another job that I'm not paid for. And I pretty much carry, all of the activities and duties in the house as well as my work. I think that women have always been coming a long way or have been ahead, but we have not been given the proper recognition for that. Women have carried society, have carried, continents, have carried countries, have carried families for centuries and centuries. And, maybe it's just now that people are realizing that. I hope that at least that's happening, and maybe that's what the caller meant. But I'm glad at least women are being more recognized. As far as DEI, something I just don't understand. Why is it that, if people are hired and they are qualified for the job, doesn't matter their color, their race, their religion, their, anything, why is that a problem? Why has it become a problem? And now when somebody of color is hired and they are the most qualified, why is it that now everybody wants to scream DEI? I think that people that are qualified, you're qualified no matter what. So it's just a shame. I just feel it's a shame that DEI has become such a horrible, thing. I think that why can't we just have, the acceptance that people of color are more qualified for many jobs, and I don't think that people should have a problem with that and use DEI as an excuse.
Dawn,
So,
thank you.
I wanted to recognize that women have been around, and we have been carrying society for centuries. So,
and let me just tell you this, and remember that Nancy carried Reagan for quite a while as well. Thank you so kindly for your call, and it's so important, and that's why I want to hear from women, because you guys rock, and we learn a lot from you if we give ourselves.
And I'm sure all the men in the audience, they have wives and daughters and women in their lives that do a lot, and I hope that they recognize that.
Thank you, Dawn. Your call was needed. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you. Have
a great day. All right, Uju, come on in. Another woman, very important. Come on in, Uju.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello? Okay, good. One few things. You were saying, why don't women call? It's always guys calling. I was thinking to myself, maybe we're not calling yet because we are measured and we are thinking about how we can add to the conversation, not just saying we're women, here we are. So that's one point. I don't know about other women, but that's, to me, if I don't have anything to add, I'm not just going to call just to hear my voice. Not to say that men do that, so please, men, back off. But I'm just saying that the women I know, if we don't have anything substantial to add, we just sit back and we pay attention and we listen and we say, oh, okay, check notes. Another thing about DEI, one thing that's missing that we also have to recognize as far as diversity, diversity in region. I remember I went to school, I went to Vanderbilt, and I remember thinking to myself, when I got there, that it was great having people from all over the country, because up until then I had never met anyone from Birmingham, Alabama. I had never met anyone from Oklahoma. These are places you exist, coming from New York, living in New York, but diversity is diversity in region as well. And we should be glad that we want a diverse community, a diverse environment, a diverse space, because that's literally how we learn. For me personally, if I see someone who was born and raised in a certain area and has never left, if anything, I say, wow, you've never explored outside of your state. You've never explored outside of your community. How are you empathetic to other people? And I guess in this day and age, you can be empathetic because you watch TV and you're on social media. But how do you learn from other people if you don't have a diversity of thought, diversity of meeting other people? So that's one thing I feel like is missing from DEI. The diversity part is diversity of region, diversity of location. I know I certainly don't want to be around the same people that I grew up with for the rest of my life. I enjoy meeting someone from Arizona because I don't meet them every day. I'm enjoying meeting people from Kansas. I'm like, oh, okay, other than like Wizard of Oz, like, oh, there, Kansas exists. But that, I think people have to understand that diversity includes diversity of region. And yeah, women, we are moms, we're wives, we're sisters, and we have to multitask. And that's not a bad thing. It really isn't. It makes us more efficient. And people who are railing against DEI, who have daughters, I kind of almost feel sad for their daughters because I'm saying, how do you tell your daughter that she can be anything she wants, but then get mad when you see women who legitimately have worked hard to get to where they're going to be, And one last thing, I remember an oral surgeon telling me that she was the first woman accepted in her oral surgery program, and how, years later she was kind of, she was like, I got a lot of flack for it. None of the guys wanted to hang out with me. I had to work 10 times as hard to be just as good. And she was, I don't know if she's still working, but she was like an amazing oral surgeon. And she said, the amount of stuff I had to put up with, even though it was kind of like sad, it made me a better clinician. So I think people who are the one of whatever, it makes them they work that much harder. It's almost like they have to prove I'm here on my own merits. And I think it makes them better professionals, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect. I'm going to have to cut you here, but you nailed it. Believe it or not, racism and all these isms have made a lot of people much better because they had to be much better. Thank you so kindly, Uju.
One more thing, because I'm a dentist, and I know me and all my black female dentists, we always say the reason we're that good is because we have to cross every T, dot every I, because we know we would never be given the grace afforded to our counterparts, just in general. So I'm that good because I've worked 10 times as hard to be that good, point blank.
Thank you so kindly for that. We're out of time. Anyway, folks, Brian, I'll get you tomorrow. Folks, let me tell you, that was a great call from those two women. You can get the rest of the show at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and you can write me directly at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. My name is, love you all. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Since 2005, the state of Indiana allowed voting-eligible students to use their student IDs to vote. April 16th.